Hi. Hello, Dia. Okay. Huh. So, hi everyone. Welcome to today's live. And in today's session, like most of you know, Dr. Rekha, who is an Ayurvedic practitioner, will be joining us and giving us some great insights on how we can incorporate Ayurvedic practices to lead a much healthier life, more specifically, healthy skin and hair, of course. So, let's see if she's here. Give me a second. I can't seem to find her. She's here. Mr. Cook, you're suffering with skin tags. So the simplest way to get rid of your skin tags is doing an RF Kotri. Hi.
Hi, doctor.
Hi, Rekha. Can you hear me?
I'm very well. Thank you, doctor. Thank you for having me. And first of all, sorry for the last time because I just took my vaccination and I was gone.
How was it? How was it the first time though? Like after your first dose, did you have the same symptoms or was it okay
Yeah,
the
I
first time
had.
around?
I had.
Yeah. For the
First time
second time,
also I had. Yeah.
thing like I took paracetamol post my vaccination, like they give you at the counter, right? I was totally fine, but the second time I got full night. I had such terrible body pains and fever, but I was fine by the next day morning.
Okay. So this was first time was like 50% milder. Second time was bad. Like
Slightly.
I didn't have fever as such in the first. The second time I got severe fever. All of a sudden my shoulder and everything was like, oh my God.
Ah, it
Yeah.
was it was time around, yeah. Okay, so first of all, thank you for joining me. You look
Thank you for
lovely. Look at
inviting
the
me.
there would be so many questions for haircare, trust me, looking at your hair.
You know,
Uh,
the thing is, whenever I have a consultation, right, doctor? So even if they come for a gut health program, diabetes, weight loss program, they always end up having a side consultation of skin and hair.
Absolutely. Skin and hair will always be there. So even for me, when I see patients with psoriasis, so whatever skin disease they come with, there has to be a skin and hair consult on the side. Because now it's a good thing in a way because there's increased awareness, and I'm really happy people are willing to take care of their skin and hair. It's like prevention is better than cure. They've got into the concept of taking care before there are some symptoms or like they face some even for aging before going and like
Correct.
facing the trying to be proactive, and it's really good. There's increased awareness. That's really good. So
Exactly. So many people are doing anti-aging, anti-aging therapies, taking collagen supplements, taking a lot of things to reduce,
hmm,
even in Ayurveda, we have very extensive understanding of aging and how we can reduce aging and everything.
yeah, great. Get into that. We'll also get into the Ayurvedic version of anti-aging. Uh,
Okay,
okay,
sure.
just to brief, I mean, like just to tell you, I want to be talking about healthy Ayurvedic practices that we can incorporate into our day-to-day life in order to have overall like for overall well-being, but also specifically for healthy skin and hair. So what are your
Yeah.
like top Ayurvedic practices that you would want all of us to inculcate in our life?
First and foremost, it's your stomach and your digestion. And that's the first and the most important thing. And the second most important thing is good elimination. So whenever you have good digestion and good elimination, and the combination of these two will give you good hair and good health. So whenever you have, today we say, right, if anything related to your skin can also be a also be uh, a sign of poor gut health. So same thing, Ayurveda also mentions that, if your digestive system is not strong enough, then you will have a lot of skin conditions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what should one do to have a healthy gut? I'm only asking about the
Sorry.
practices, Rekha, here. I'm asking you about the practices. So, I think in the last slide we discussed about the healthy foods that you should be consuming to have healthy gut and how important, how important the health of gut is. So, I think that we had addressed. So, what I want to know is what are the Ayurvedic practices that would help me in achieving a healthy gut? I'm not talking about the foods. I'm only wanting to know the practices that I can put myself on.
Yeah. First and foremost, simple thing. First of all, waking up early in the morning.
Hmm.
Waking up early in the morning before sunrise because it is that time of
Guilty. Hmm.
every simple thing that we do. So what we say as digestion according to Ayurvedic terms, we call it as Agni. Okay.
Hmm.
So to improve Agni, it is not just one thing that you do by eating. It is the whole set of procedures that you do, simple things that you do from the morning till evening. First and foremost, waking up early in the morning. Why? Because waking up early in the morning before sunrise or at sunrise, even at least around sunrise, has this natural Vata Kala, which we say that where your bowel movements automatically happen because that is the time when your body is ready for elimination. So that is one thing. So that is first thing and first and the most important thing, waking up early. Second thing, things like oil pulling, tongue scraping, these have profound impact on your gut health. Why? Because your mouth is the first point of starting of your digestion, right? It is the starting point of your alimentary canal, and you have your salivary amylase and everything happening in your mouth. So the health of your mouth, your teeth, your gums. For this, you need to do oil pulling and tongue scraping first thing in the morning.
So
Having
I
warm water.
I would want to interrupt you here. So I want to, because I don't want to forget one of the most important questions I had noted down for you is about oil pulling. Okay, I was practicing oil pulling, I think some years ago when I was doing I think graduation time or something, and then somehow I got disconnected from this habit. And the post that you actually put on your page about oil pulling was in. I had so many questions on that post. I'm like, what are you saying? Because I was only thinking coconut oil is used for oil pulling, and I didn't have any relation. In my head there was no relation between oil pulling and sunrise. It was nothing. Whenever I wake up, the first thing I do is oil pulling. But your post gave so much more information on oil pulling. So without, I mean, in a like very like simplified manner, what are the oils that are good for oil pulling, and why is it important to do around the time of sunrise?
Yeah.
I mean,
So
my
oil
grandfather
pulling.
around sunrise, but now I'm a little upset with that. I've not seen him in many, many months. The sunrise. I'm not talking about the sunset, but sunrise I've not seen in many months, which I'm not proud of. But I have, in my defense, I have a daughter who also sleeps a little late.
Oh, okay. Okay. So for oil pulling, the best oil to have is sesame oil, not
Mm,
coconut oil. Coconut oil is a little bit dry and it's a cooling oil, and it will not. A lot of people who have done oil pulling with coconut oil have come to me saying the dryness of mouth and stuff like that. So the best oil, and even in Ayurveda, there is no mention of coconut oil for oil pulling. It is something very new, like new age and modern. But the oil pulling, the whole concept comes from Ayurveda, right? You can use, if you don't want to use sesame oil, you can even use hot water for that matter. Hot water with some salt added to it. That's also fine. Just plain hot water, still okay. If you have gum disease or if you have problems with the teeth, then we have other oils like Arimedadi Thailam, which is good for the health of the teeth. Also, mixed with a little bit of sesame oil will help you to improve the health of the mouth. That's one thing. The second question is ideal time to do oil pulling is when in the morning. Why? Because when it is not cloudy and it is in that time, it gives more, it is more ease, more, it is the time which is mentioned in the Samhitas that you should do oil pulling. So if you're living a busy life, if usually the ideal way of oil pulling is holding it in your mouth. You can either hold the whole oil in your mouth tight, or you can hold that a little bit, like you can just move it around, okay, like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, like
Um,
a lot of like
uh,
swishing around.
yeah, yeah. So you can do it for, ideally you should be doing it until you feel there's a lot of oozing and secretion from your mouth and from your eyes or from your nose. But
Oh,
yes, that is the ideal time. So when people say 20 minutes, it is not really 20 minutes, or 10 minutes is not really 10 minutes. This is the time that is mentioned in the textbooks. Until then, you have to do. And if you want to, if you are a, so what I tell my patients is, if you don't have time for 20 minutes, 25 minutes to wait for the oozing, at least do 2 minutes or 3 minutes and just make it a part of your schedule. You know, you every day you brush teeth. Why not do oil pulling and tongue scraping every day? And on the days when you really have time, do a proper oil pulling and wait for the oozing to happen. That's a proper oil pulling. So this is the other things that will help improve the Agni. And the
has,
next thing which I wanted to say is,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
please. I wanted to ask, like, has anything
yes,
changed
doctor.
about the concept of oil pulling with the modern times? Because so many practices change
Mm.
with modern. Now we have brushing, we have so many toothpaste that claim to do a lot of like antiseptic things to the teeth. But has anything changed with oil pulling over time, over the time, or is it just the
See,
same?
even with brushing, yeah, even for brushing for that matter, the instead of toothpaste, we used to use tooth powders, like organic tooth powders made from the husk of grains burnt. It is dark in color. Like even today, I think some new FMCG companies have come with that carbon toothpaste that was used initially, and even the taste, even the bark of bitter trees, they were used with a bitter taste in it. That was also used during that time. So what has changed is with oil pulling, since the original concept is like that, it is always good if we preserve the original and do as per what is given in the textbook, because that has been followed since so many centuries and years and like thousands of years, and it has that at that value even today. If you see whatever has Ayurveda has said at that point in time, like 5,000 years ago, is still relevant even today.
Yeah, most practices at least. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
how
But
is sesame oil better than any other oils? Why is only that oil preferred? Any reasoning behind it?
yeah, sesame oil is not a drying oil. It is an oil which is good for all prakritis. It is especially exceptionally good for Vata prakriti, but for all kinds of prakriti, Vata, Pitta or Kapha, all kinds of prakriti, sesame oil is very good. And also it has certain properties where it is extremely penetrating. So if you do the same, say for example, if you're doing oiling with coconut oil and sesame oil, the penetrating effect of sesame oil is much higher than, so it can go deep down to the tissues. So that's why sesame oil it has a lot of dosha pacifying properties, and it balances all doshas for everybody.
Got it. I'm noting it down literally.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a question called, what about cold press organic coconut oil? It's the same thing. Sesame oil is 100 times better, because coconut oil is there in Ayurveda. There are a lot of mentions of coconut oil, but not for oil pulling, but for skin conditions. Something like, there are amazing skin oils, like if you have, itching, and if you have things like that, like Durvadi Keram, Dinesha Keram. These are all coconut oil based oils because it has a cooling property to it. But not that for the sesame oil. Sesame oil is always better.
Great, great. Okay, so you have to add anything on like oil pulling, or that's about it?
Yeah,
I think
that's about it.
there on your page if anyone wants to know more about oil pulling. And also, I saw, um, a lot of the colleagues that I know, nutritionists and doctors from various, what do you say, the branches also are adapting to oil pulling. And in West, they are also mixing the coconut oil with vitamin C and whole lot of antibacterial solutions in the coconut oil, and I saw them doing this oil pulling. But I think we have so many great natural ingredients that will do the job just right.
Yeah.
Yeah. The next one you were saying
And
was
doctor,
warm.
do you do oil pulling?
Like I mentioned, I used to do many years ago, but I'm not doing it anymore. But I have to do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to restart. I was doing it for, I think, religiously for over a year back in the day when I was actually doing it, but I have to do it. I think I felt much better oral hygiene when I was actually doing oil pulling. I felt the difference.
Yeah. So you can just keep it ready in your washroom so that every time you wake up, it
Yeah,
comes automatically. So it's just like how you brush teeth, oil pulling, and then brush teeth, and then tongue scraping.
yeah, yeah, yeah. We
Yeah.
should start. Okay, so the next thing you was talking about pulling is warm water consumption, right?
Yeah, warm water first thing in the morning. There are a lot of anti-aging herbs available according to Ayurveda. One is licorice, and this is my one of my favorite herbs, which I myself consume. And it is one of the herbs that is mentioned throughout Ayurveda, like for every single disease, every single chapter. There is one mention at least of licorice. Licorice is called
Okay.
mulethi. It is called Glycyrrhiza glabra. That's a scientific name. It is called mulethi or irati madhuram or licorice in English. It's very, very
It's
good for anti-aging.
now it's very widely used even in the cosmetic field, licorice. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do
And
you recommend?
even Ayurveda says Ayurveda has a lot of formulations with licorice in it for many diseases, treating many diseases, and also for skin. A lot of lay-pass for the skin has licorice in it. A lot of um, hair growth, hair fall, oils. If you see even very simple, the most popular Ayurvedic oil for hair is Neeli Bringadi oil. Even if you take that oil and see behind, you will see licorice in it. So it is an ingredient in every important skin and hair care product in Ayurveda, and also it is something which is mentioned in every chapter in Ayurveda. So much of benefit. So it is antioxidant, anti-aging. It is wonderful if you can take it in some way or the other. But prolonged use for a long time is not good. So you have to take a break. 1.5 months you have it, and then take a break. Then maybe after 3 months you can start having it. And also, it is not really recommended for people with high BP. Otherwise, licorice is something you can have every day. So what you can do is you can take a 1 inch piece of licorice and then put it in uh, one and a half glasses of water and boil it and reduce to 1 glass of water, and you can have every morning. So this is what I do every morning.
Great. So I think it's not just with licorice, any ingredient, like even when we give supplementation, this is what we say. Do not take it through the year or continuously. You need to do it like cyclical. Otherwise, your body will just
Correct.
do it and becomes dependent on it. So always cyclical supplementation or, all these practices, and
Correct.
even like oil rotation, even when cooking, I personally believe in oil rotation. So not one oil has all the nutrients that you would want. So I think it's best for you to like do oil rotation also when you're cooking, or even for hair oil when you're doing, just mix and match a lot of like oils and herbs and make different types of concoctions so that you get all the essential nutrients that you should be getting through these procedures. Yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
point.
But Ayurveda has a different concept of oil. Regarding the oil rotation thing, Ayurveda has a different concept. Ayurveda has a lot
We
of
will
things.
it's a very
Sorry?
big. We will get to oiling, um, cooking oils,
No,
hair oil.
cooking oil.
Yeah, so oiling is a very
Yeah,
different. So we will get there because I have questions listed.
yeah,
But complete the Ayurvedic habits we should be inculcating. in our day-to-day life. So we spoke about morning oil pulling, and then we spoke about drinking warm water. And what's the next one you would recommend?
Drinking warm water, tongue scraping, waking up early in the morning. So we mentioned four things. So the
Yeah,
fifth
sorry.
and the most important thing is Abhyanga or daily oil massage. This is something everybody should do in their everyday life. If you have seen those old uncles, 90-year-old thin uncles, they'll be very fit and happy. They'll be walking around fast and they'll be doing everything. If you see their routine, they all have, you know, they all put oil in their body. They move every joints in the morning. So all those things people do, because Abhyanga is said to be, or oil massage is said to be something which is very good for anti-aging according to Ayurveda. And if you have seen those yoga teachers, right, they're very flexible. And the more you are flexible, they don't age much. Like if they see it 60, 65 years also, they look like 40 or 35. Why? Because of their flexibility of their body. Yeah. And that happens because of the flexibility. And for getting that flexibility, especially people who are thin and who are lean, mostly have a Vata Prakriti. So Vata Prakriti people, the thing is, they have a natural tendency of drying up. Naturally, they are dry. If you see their skin, their hair, everything is dry. The same thing happens internally also. Their internal tract is also dry. They get constipation often, all those conditions. So for such people specifically, they need to do Abhyanga every day, because that gives them that flexibility and that lubrication that they need. Simple, say for example, simple joints like ball and socket joint here we have, or any other joint for that matter. See, they're the bones are continuously in motion, right? And just for that to happen, you need that oiling. And especially if you are Vata Prakriti and you're thin built and everything, you naturally lack that lubrication. So that's why you have to apply oil at least to all your joints and then to your skin.
So when you say Abhyanga, you're talking about which oil should be used, and I read about heating the oil before you actually do the massage on the joint. So which oil, and do you need to heat it? And is it important to do the oiling to the entire body, or is it enough if you just do to the most important joints? And
Yeah.
and how
So
do you?
which oils to use?
I'm sorry. Like I'll finish the question. So do you recommend massaging after application of oil? If so, roughly how much time we should be massaging these joints?
Yeah, okay. First question, which oils to use? So if you are a lean built person, mostly you will be having a Vata Prakriti. Then you should use something like a Mahamasha oil. So when you use just a sesame oil or just a coconut oil or just any other oil, what happens is it is just a base oil. Unless and
Yeah.
until that oil is fortified with some herbs, other than unless and until that, we will not get the good effects from that oil.
Okay.
Because if you see sesame oil, it has that penetrating effect. But once you put some herbs in it, the herbs action gets penetrated. The active compounds get absorbed quickly into the bloodstream, and gets quickly absorbed into the tissues when you do it. So that's why the best oil for Vata, the thin people, is Maha Masha Tailam. The best oil for people who are medium built, like you, like me, not you, medium built people who have a Pitta Prakriti. No, I'm not Pitta Prakriti, I'm a Vata and Kapha Prakriti, by the way. So for the medium built body, we have to give something like a Kshira Bala Thailam. Kshira Bala, it is something which is very good for Pitta Prakriti people and medium built body. And if you're obese or fat, or if you feel like you are somebody who put on weight easily, then you shouldn't do oil massages often or massages often. Something like a dry powder massage is what Ayurveda recommends if you are fat. Yeah.
Okay. Because I think there's a lot of like fluid already. Is that the reason? Is this fat and fluid a lot, or is that the reason, or is there any
Yeah,
other
fat
reason why?
and fluid is a lot. Yeah, fat and fluid definitely is a lot in those in Kapha Prakriti, and also in Kapha Prakriti people. they cannot stand too much of massages. So we have to give Ruksha treatment or the drying treatment. So we for the drying treatment we use powders. So there are powders like Kola Kulatha Churnam or Kulathadi Churnam. All these things you can use for just massaging externally if you are having a. Otherwise, don't use any kind of oil. You can use oil, just apply it, but no massaging. Massaging is not advised.
Okay, okay. But where do we get all these oils and these ingredients?
You will get in Ayurvedic centers. So I have a clinic back in India, but right now it is closed because it's not closed. It's reopened after lockdown, and we have not started the courier. And everybody keeps asking when is it opening. This is my answer to everybody.
I sit down and do the research on various, Ayurvedic practices that I can personally inculcate. The Greek language comes into the text, like all these oils, all these powders, and where do I get? So there were so many times that I went to Ayurvedic shops and I wanted to buy the stuff. I always have doubt about the purity of these products. So I just come back and like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, I don't want the products to do any harm. Forget the good. So I want to know where you can source good, trusted products, whatever you're
See,
mentioning
the
now.
thing with products is this thing with products is if you see on my Instagram also, I get a lot of Ayurvedic companies, large manufacturing houses coming to me, asking me, uh, asking me about promotions and collaborations. But as long as I don't believe in them, I cannot promote them, right? So, the large manufacturers, I'm totally not into them because a lot of times when you see the ingredients that we know about, if you see them, it's 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 made commercially. So when you make it commercially and when you make it in a small scale, it is huge difference, especially in Ayurvedic medicines. So in my clinic, we make medicines with three burners. There are just three burners in the clinic, and we make the medicines there. Everything is hand pounded, homemade, with the minimal machinery, with no preservatives whatsoever. So that's how we make it in the clinic. And for my patients, I reach them out to them. Reach out. I reach these wherever they are in the world. I send them to them. But other than that, if you're at some place where you have a lot of shops, go and see the local shop which is creating these medicines in their own premises, rather than going to a large manufacturer. So this is what, and because there are a lot of arishtas, like something like Dashamula arishta, it is supposed to have 10 roots in it, and if you see the bottle, there is no 10 roots because one of it is expensive, it is not there. Or there are a lot of things that happens. Even the Nili Brigadi oil, it has to have goat milk. So there's too much scarcity of goat milk in the area in the area where I am coming from, and when we had to make hair oil in the clinic. So I reached out to one of these manufacturers, asking them for how to use those goat milk. Then they said goat milk is written, but we don't use goat milk in the there is no goat milk in that oil. Yeah, so things
Yeah,
like this keep on happening. So I don't really trust any of these brands
most of the
products.
products. So it's very, very difficult for you to. So even for me as a practitioner, we get thousands of products released into the market every day, and it's not a joke for
Correct.
us to try test those products and realize that this is just bunch of shit. And very, very few products are amazing. So every time even on my Instagram, people ask me, "Is this product good? Is that product?" I said, "Dude, I didn't try this. I can't. I don't think this company will ever produce anything good. I don't try these products. So whatever I'm recommending, you better take it." Yeah.
So how do you
Continue.
tackle this, doctor? So when you are faced with so many brands like this, how do you tackle this?
So I think one is trusting the brand. There are very few brands who are authentic. There's a lot of. I think it's all about R&D. The research, the papers that they give you when they give a product, everything shows, right? The research, the hard work behind production of a product shows. So I'm very, very choosy about the companies that I'm associated with in the first place. So when a product releases, when a company releases a particular product, first go through the R&D, then try it on yourself. If I can try a particular product on myself, I always try products on myself before I put them out in the shelf or recommend to my clients. Always. Some products like,
Yeah.
ointments for fungal infections and all of that, which I really can't try. It always is all about the R&D and the company. It's for me, it's the name of the
Yeah.
company that the product is coming out with. And a lot of times in
Yeah.
the companies that I'm really associated with, and I like a lot of their products, I go to their factory, understand how they're, preparing these products and all. I'm very keen and very particular about all of that. So R&D is very, very, very
Mm.
important. You can just randomly
Very,
come
very
out.
important.
There are so many Ayurvedic brands who have everything from atta to skincare to hair care to everything. So how can there be R&D behind these products? You're releasing 10 or like 1,000 products every day. Where is your R&D? How are you coming up with this product? So you can't trust certain companies, right? So I think it's about the
Correct.
company.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Continue with your dinacharya. Otherwise, Mr. June 9th is going to attack me literally. So
Okay, so yeah, so I said almost everything, right? So we have Abhyanga, and then we will do some movements, some exercises. If you do some Surya Namaskara or yoga, you can do at this time after Abhyanga, or at least some movement of your joints, your knuckles, your shoulders, your upper body, lower body, every like forgotten movements. Like somebody is calling me right now from behind. I would just turn my entire body back and look at him, right? But I will never look at him from this corner of my eyes. You know, there are certain forgotten movements like that. So we have to move every joint, um, whether it is our neck or hands or feet or anywhere. You have to move your joints after doing Abhyanga and then take a shower and then go ahead with a very warm, light breakfast. So this completes your dinacharya.
is there any night routine that you would recommend? So now with the day, I mean, like
Um,
right and all of that is great, but there's any night routine as per Ayurveda that would help a person to go, that would aid in sleep? And I think just a good night routine in Ayurveda, what do you recommend?
yeah. So a night routine, one thing that Ayurveda recommends, if you're somebody with less sleep or not able to sleep properly, then you can do a night routine with a oil. So what you can do is apply a little bit of oil on your palms, feet, ears, eyes, and your face, and then you go to bed. And these oils should be specific. Somebody who is having a lot of heat issues or hot body or pitta issues, then they should use something like a cooling oil, like a Brahmi oil or a Chandanadi oil, something like that. And somebody who is having a, a cold body and who constantly gets cold and fever and cough and everything, all those conditions, better not use any oil that is cooling. Something very simple like a sesame oil massage of your feet and your palms. That's more than enough.
Great. Cool. So I hope that answers all your questions on dinacharya and the Ayurvedic practices that you can inculcate to have a healthy life. So now coming to oiling. Okay, so I have a lot of issues with oiling myself, but I will not talk about it much. I will let you do the talk now. So when we talk about oiling, I think we'll talk about hair oiling routine and also about cooking oils. Like someone wanted us to talk about oil rotation, like I mentioned. So that's something I practice. But what is your thought on oil rotation and hair oil?
Okay. So in terms of oil rotation, what Ayurveda believes that most of the things that you have to cook well have to be cooked in ghee. Ghee is the best oil. And if you are somebody with skin issues, if you have a lot of heat in your body, you cannot use oils like mustard oil. It's not really good. If you have heat and if you have skin issues. Sesame oil is good. It's fine. Extra virgin coconut oil is also good for cooking. So these are a few oils for cooking. But ultimately, if you ask, the best thing to cook with is ghee.
But when you want to cook
Yeah.
with ghee, so much quantity of ghee should be used when you want to actually make Indian curries, right?
Yeah. you should
So
be mindful about ghee also, because these days we say ghee enhances digestion, ghee is good for health. People overuse ghee. What people don't understand that uh, even that ghee needs to be digested by the system. There
yeah.
are, yeah, there will be indigestion happening in people with overconsumption of ghee also. So ghee should be, you should be mindful about having ghee. Just be like, just like how you use a little bit of oil, just take 1 or 2 teaspoons of ghee and use it. Don't just, yeah.
Okay. So about the most controversial topic, hair oiling.
Hair oil,
Huh? What?
hair oiling.
Yes, hair oiling. Because okay, so just why I say controversial is because I'm someone I do not believe in hair oiling. It's been years that I've oiled my hair. I only do it sometimes when I don't know, when I feel like doing it, because I do it on my daughter. I do hair oiling to my daughter because for children we don't like using too many products, right? So I don't like using conditioners and all of that for her. But we have to make sure that her hair is nourished and doesn't dry out. So for that sole condition, I mean that's whole reason I would want to oil her hair only to condition it. So I mix a lot of like oils and flowers and herbs and seeds, whatever I can make the best concoction on that particular day. I do it and I apply. It's mainly for conditioning and I leave it for a couple of hours. I don't leave it overnight again and wash it off. And also like if you look at some of my stories I post once in a while, I tie her hair. I don't tie too tight, but then I make sure all the hair is up on the head and nothing is lying loose. I don't like oil touching anywhere else. So that's my relationship with hair oiling. Because I don't believe hair
Hair
oiling will
oil.
I don't believe that hair oils will help with hair growth or like hair fall. It's a good conditioner. Now that is my belief. And also I feel like every time you apply hair oil, there's a lot of hair fall because the hair becomes weak and there's a lot of shedding. So I'm petrified to see the amount of hair we lose once you oil hair. So I've stopped that practice. So that's my story. So what do you recommend and what are your thoughts on hair oiling?
Okay. My thoughts on hair oil is very, very important for good hair growth, hair reducing hair fall, and for improving the texture of your hair. But I really like this conversation, doctor. You won't believe last week, not last week, 2, 3 weeks back, there was another dermatologist sitting at your place, and he was, how can you say this? I don't agree to this. And
Oh,
it
see,
was so, it became a next level conversation, and there were a lot of people fighting between, allopathy and modern medicine for about like for and against, like Ayurveda is good, allopathy is good, but I really, really hats off to you for taking it in. Yeah, everybody has their own. Each medical system has their own good things, and we have the more you are. This is what I told everybody. The more you are open to learning, the whole universe opens up. The more you have restricted beliefs and you restrict yourself, your world is shut there. You know.
I always
Yeah.
I believe in integrated approach. I believe in holistic wellness. But I think there are some practices that change with the modern times. There are some adaptations that we need to do with the modern times and all. So that adaptations is fine. But if you say there's nothing in ancient wisdom, I think we're the most foolish people to even think that Ayurveda or ancient wisdom holds no good in the modern times. That's absolutely not true. So there was someone else in the comment also saying, I don't believe in oil pulling. These people are just fooling us. Do you have any research on that? I will share articles. I mean, like, it's foolish for somebody even to talk like that. It's just lack of knowledge or awareness. There are so
Lack
many
of knowledge.
research done on the importance of oil pulling. So I think it's only you don't believe in certain things either when you don't know or when you tried and you know for a fact that it is not working. I mean, it's okay, you can have your beliefs, but at least be open to the fact of like learning, try, and if it doesn't work, great, it doesn't work. Yeah, hair oiling in my
Correct.
instance.
Correct.
But then if it's working,
Yeah.
I would learn and understand it. If you tell me, try this oil, it will help you with your hair growth, I will try. I will try. Yeah.
Ah, okay, doctor. So, hair is one big part of my part of like part of my practice, and I work with a lot of alopecia areata. I work with people with premature graying of hair. I work with people with a lot of hair issues. And every day, one of my consultation is about hair. One consultation every day is 1 or 2 consultations every day is about hair. So, hair, according to Ayurveda, anything to do with hair is because, like, say for example, there is hair fall. It could be because of a lot of heat in your body. If the hair is getting brittle, it could be because of there is a lot of vata in the body, and the hair is too much. There's a lot of oiliness in the scalp. It could be because of a kapha related thing. So we first see what is the dominant. Say for example, if it's just a simple dandruff, and we see if it is a dry dandruff or an oily dandruff, even if it is a lesion from a psoriasis patient, we see whether it is a dry lesion or an oily lesion. So this is how we diagnosed what treatment to give based on the condition of the patient, and then coming about, and based on these different uh, the different types, we have different kinds of treatments, different kinds of oils. Even the thing that how much time you should keep oil in your head also depends upon your prakriti. Like if you're somebody with kapha prakriti who constantly gets a lot of sneezing and allergic rhinitis, or somebody who is having upper respiratory disorders, then what we do is we don't ask them to have it, keep it for more than 25 to 30 minutes. But somebody who is having a pitta prakriti who can stand it for a longer time, you can keep it for more than 45 minutes. And even the duration of massage to make sure the oil reaches the tissues and nourish them is also mentioned in Ayurveda. It should be 6 minutes is the time mentioned in the Samhitas. 6 minutes you have to massage your scalp to make sure that the oil, this thing, and not more than 2 ml or 3 ml. What happens these days when there is oiling, people will take one big ball of oil, they heat it, and then they put it all over the head. That is not recommended in Ayurveda at all. In Shiro Abhyanga, that means Shiro means head, Abhyanga means massaging, it is clearly written 2 to 3 ml only, very little quantity. Apply first here. There's a soft spot over here, the bregma. Apply it over here and then work your way with your fingers. And this is the oiling mentioned. There is no mention of applying oil even to the length of the hair. Just like how our skin needs moisturizing and that oiliness, like I said, for Vata Prakriti people, right? Always dry. When it is dry, it cracks, it breaks. But when it is oily and moisturized very well, just like our skin, it is more nicer. It works more. The same thing happens when you oil your hair also. So when you oil your scalp, just like our scalp needs that moisture. For that, you use the oils which is suited for your type of hair and your type of scalp. So this is the concept of oiling according to Ayurveda, and it is not the full hair oiling that happens, which we see, and oil dripping. No, it has to be very minimal amount, 2 ml to 3 ml maximum.
Yeah. So I think, yeah, that's a point too, because there's only one guy I trust my hair with, and I get the DNA Rise and Shine treatment once in a year. So that, it gives a nice coating to the hair, and it is like, it just looks healthy, and it also makes the hair healthy inside out. So since I don't do oiling and all of that, that's the only thing I get done to my hair, and once in a while, like hair mask, right? So when he came last time, and we were talking a lot because he believes in oiling again, and he made this hair oil. And he told me just use 1 ml, use only 1 ml, and it should not be used in children because it has a lot of essential oils. And he said don't use it in children, like to your daughters. It's not to be used in that age group. It's for like adults. So the base was jojoba oil, and then just 1-2 drops of all these essential oils he mixed, and he made this tiny bottle. He said this should last for over a year to you. So that's, I think, like you said, 2 to 3 ml. He asked me to take only 1 ml. So just put it on the scalp. Don't massage it too much. Just do the circular movements and leave it. So I think there is some the right way of doing hair, the right way of hair oiling.
Right way of doing things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we should. I should.
But
I
then
should.
people get acne maybe because what happens is most of the times they don't know what oil suits them, and they may be getting a lot of acne already, and they have a lot of oiliness in their skin, and then they use oil, and that too, this oil dripping all over their face, and it will further worsen your acne if it is not an oil suited to your skin. So,
Yeah.
all these matters.
Yes, absolutely. So I also like, I think you also mentioned this point, do not leave on like hair oil overnight or not for many hours. This will definitely lead to breakouts
No.
on your back and face. So that's something that
Yeah.
I also, if you love your hair oil, it's fine, but don't leave it overnight or the tight braiding. Don't comb while
Yeah.
like oil. Just,
Never. Yeah.
these are some of the things I think we can
Yeah,
practice.
so after you oiling, you should take a shower. You cannot leave your hair with the oil at all.
The other problem I
That's
have,
very important.
you apply so much oil, right? You also end up using a lot more shampoo. That's more product, and also you end up causing more friction because you just want the oil to be gone. So you end up having doing more,
Correct.
apply more friction. So that also weakens your hair, and then there would be hair shedding and more product like in terms of shampoo you use. So all of these things put together, I was away from hair oiling. But I think if I want to give it a second try, um, I would request you to put up a post on hair oils if that's possible, whenever the kind of oils one should be using.
Yeah.
3 ml. What are the herbs we should be? So I randomly like use curry leaves powder and methi seeds, hibiscus flower, dried hibiscus flower powder. So I use all of these things. But if it would be great if you can just put up a post on the right way of hair oiling. I would definitely give it a second try.
Sure.
My thoughts on that.
Yeah, that's fine. But as long as you add these powders and herbs to it, it is fine. But some people mix almond oil, coconut oil, sesame oil, and some other oil together. It's just a base oils.
Okay,
You're just mixing the bases. Yeah.
okay.
But instead, if you use, there are certain things called Thringaraja powder that you can get. Okay, Thringaraja is wonderful for your hair growth. It's one of those ones which it doesn't even create. Sometimes some people when they use oil directly to their hair for the first time, they may start getting headache because they already have a kapha prakriti. For such people, yeah, if you have that, this does not even create this particular herb. So there are a lot of herbs which are amazing for even simple things like amla powder as a pack is very very good for the hair. Daily, if you can have one amla, instead of amla, if you can get dry organic powdered amla, very good quality, mix with a little bit of ghee and have it every day before lunch or with lunch. That is something as good as taking a hair supplement.
I'm doing it. So when you say like dry amla, can I just sun dry the amlas that I have? The tiny tiny gooseberries.
Yeah,
Is this gooseberries and
even better.
gooseberries are better, right? We have so many gooseberries falling on every day, and my daughter goes picks them up and some we throw. So I think I can just sun dry them powder and then have 1 tablespoon of that with ghee.
Not tablespoon, even teaspoon.
Teaspoon. Okay.
Like 2 teaspoons. Tablespoon is too much. You will pass loose motions. You will have loose motions.
Oh God. Okay. So and I think I will record this whole process and also put it up and tag you, and you can also criticize me for doing something wrong and then correct me and let followers.
Definitely, doctor.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
I really expect a post from you about hair oiling. So it will definitely be useful for everybody watching this. Okay,
yeah.
so the next thing is, so I just noted down a few questions that the followers had sent about Kumkumadi. One of the most
Oh,
overrated, in my opinion, overrated, overhyped
yes.
Kumkumadi anti-aging
True.
serums. Oh God. So what
True.
do you, I think you are a better
Correct.
talk about this than I am. So please tell about Kumkumadi. What's your opinion on that?
I'm not a Kumkumadi person at all. Even, it's just like Ashwagandha, right? Ashwagandha is everywhere. Everybody's talking about Ashwagandha. And even yesterday morning, I had a consultation from an Ashwagandha uh, overdosage side effect, and I had to treat that person. So this is because you take Ashwagandha from the counter without knowing your Prakriti or your how this herb is going to act. Even if it is a herb, it's a potent herb. The same
Yeah.
thing with Kumkumadi, right? Kumkumadi I have initially used while I was in my college and it never suited me. First patient, second patient, third patient, I gave no result. Even the skin became worse. And finally, I realized it is something which is not good for a lot of people, maybe working for 1% of the people or 2% of the people. And there are even better oils in Ayurveda, better formulations in Ayurveda, which is good for your skin, which is good for everything rather than Kumkumadi is overrated, overpriced, and
Yeah.
over marketed. I
Why
don't know.
expensive? Yeah. I
It's
bought
super expensive.
and I don't feel what do you say, the it's not even result oriented, so to say, and the price doesn't make sense for me when I see the results. For me, it's my person. So I bought one
Correct.
Kumkumadi XYZ brand only because a lot of people kept asking me about that, and I said, okay, what harm can happen? I can just try, but yeah, yeah. There are so many like nice actives even in allopathy that can transform your skin without any side effects or even burning your pocket so much. Yeah.
Correct.
So, I personally wanted to know what is this kumkumadi? It's a combination of different herbs which has saffron, also has
Yeah.
saffron.
Yeah. Combination of different herbs with saffron as the major ingredient.
And what's the base
So
here?
if you
Like, what,
see most of
because it's an oily
it,
product.
Kumkumadi Thailand is sesame oil based. Sesame oil.
And that
Yeah.
the
So
anti.
whenever you see any oil, right? If you see any oil, if it ends with xylem, it means sesame oil, and if it ends with keram, it is coconut oil. So most of the oils like Eladi Thailam, Eladi Keram. So for the babies we use Eladi Keram, and for adults we use Eladi Thailam. So for body massage, for that matter. So depending upon that name, you can understand whether it is Keram or that
But
sesame oil or coconut oil.
in the anti-aging serums, that kumkumadi the anti-aging serums, does oil is oil also included in these serums, or is it just the herbs
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
is right?
No,
Yeah.
no,
So,
no. Herbs get more potent when it is mixed with these oils, as I said, because of the penetrating properties. Even in our clinic, we make glow oil, which is for glowing skin, and we make it with 18 cooling herbs put together. But again, the base is sesame oil. But once you finish making the oil, it doesn't. It no longer looks like sesame oil. It converts to something totally different, and that's sesame oil is very good for the skin. It's the best oil for skin. Best oil for baby. Somebody is asking. It's if it is for most babies, if there is not too much of redness or small pimples and everything in red color, small this thing, then you can use Eladit Keram for the babies, which is good.
since you're talking about the baby oils, for whoever asked, Preeti, I wouldn't recommend oiling in babies when like Dr. Rekha was mentioning, like we talk about the inflammation and the red bumps, right? So in those kids, I would
Correct.
highly you to avoid any form of oiling, especially the massage and all, because
Yeah.
there is infection and inflammation on those babies. So the most important thing is to calm the skin down. So using a great moisturizer and if needed, anti-inflammatory cream will be given by your doctor or a pediatrician or a dermat. And then I think you can resume. I'm not against oiling in children in general, but when they are having these conditions like occlusive conditions, especially, or
Yeah.
occlude the skin, they will attract more dust and irritate the skin even more. So that's the reason I think even
Yeah.
practitioners and allopathic practitioners ask you not to leave oil on the body for a long time. And like an hour, 2 or 3 should be good, and you should go and take bath. I would never ever recommend, even for non conditioned skin, even if your skin is all
Even
healthy.
for kids, right? Even for babies. Yeah,
Yeah,
for even for babies, leaving oil for not more than 30 minutes is not really recommended.
because that can.
And as soon as you take, mm,
Yeah, yeah. Please go ahead. Yeah,
yeah, as soon as you finish your 30 minutes, then just give them a bath.
yeah.
Because too much of oil, if you retain in your body, it can aggravate the doshas and it's not really good.
Yes, and also like externally also, and externally it will block or the occlude your pores and leading to more kind
Pores.
of acne or inflammation and all of that. So apply oil, but just wash it off. I mean, like get rid of it as soon as you
Yeah.
can. Even for babies, so that's one thing. And okay, so the other thing, what about honey? I also personally have this question about honey. Also, in my personal experience, I think it's still surprising. I've been doing reading. I was still not able to find answer to this because there I used to also practice having hot, like warm water with lemon and
With
honey.
honey.
Yes, for a very long time. And then I felt every night I used to have this bad gastritis. So I'm a
Hmm.
very conscious eater, and I'm mindful. I'm very conscious and mindful with my meals or general my lifestyle also. So I was not able to figure out why I had this bad gastritis, and I just
Hmm.
cut consuming lemon on empty stomach. Okay, so I used to just have
Hmm.
fennel. I think I posted about this also. I started having uh, water, add fennel seeds, boil till it comes to half, and then drink the fennel seeds. Sometimes I add
Yeah.
and all of that. But the day I
Hmm.
stopped consuming lemon on empty stomach, I didn't have gastritis ever again. So even now I'm petrified about
Hmm.
lemon. I eat it with my meals and through the day, but not on empty stomach. Has it got any relation to gastritis? Because it shouldn't
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
alkaline once it goes to the system. But why was it causing STT1? And what's the right way of consuming honey? I think most of us consume honey in a very wrong way. So what's the right way of consuming honey?
okay, doctor. So coming to your first question about lemon. So unless and until you're somebody who eats a lot of greasy, oily food, you don't require honey first thing in the morning to clean it. Like just like how we use a dishwash with lemon, when there is a lot of grease in it, it removes it, right? The same thing happens when if you are somebody who is eating normal food, you don't require that sharp and penetrating kind of we call it in Ayurveda tikshna. Anything with acid and alkali, right? Which is again lemon for that matter. It is tikshna and sharp and penetrating, and it can cause burning of the
Mm.
tissues. So we
Yeah.
don't really recommend honey on empty stomach in the morning because even our mucosal lining has to be nice and moisturized and everything. You're depleting it of the natural moisture if when you're having lemon in the morning.
Are you talking about honey or lemon? Because you were using both. Are you talking about honey or
I'm
lemon here?
talking about I'm talking about lemon, lemon, lemon. Did I say honey?
Honey
I
and
didn't.
like
Oh, okay, sorry. And lemon, lemon, lemon. Okay, so that's about lemon. And then coming to honey. Honey is very, very good according to Ayurveda. Honey, if it is from bees taken raw, is even a medicine for diabetes. That's what we say in Ayurveda, and it is very good for people with a lot of cough and upper respiratory tract disorders. Small kids with a lot of cough and cold and those things, you can just give a teaspoon of honey to them, and it will because it is super kapha pacifying. It is one of the most important medicines for pacifying kapha. And it is used externally in heated forms inside for our body for purification treatments and all. But internally, we are not allowed to consume honey which is warmed because we say that when honey becomes warmed, yeah, when it is warmed, or
hmm.
if you add with hot water, or if a person with too much of heat in their body is consuming it, or somebody who is from a hot country, like I am from a hot country, UAE is a hot country, and if I am consuming it from here sitting in a hot country, all these things will lead to honey changing its properties once it goes inside our body, which is not really good for our body, which creates undigested toxic waste in accumulation in the system, which can lead to further diseases and conditions. So that's why honey and lemon water is not at all required. And even in the morning, first thing in the morning, you don't really require. As I said, just have something as simple as a licorice water for your skin and your hair. You know,
Yeah,
that's more
absolutely.
than enough.
So this is the biggest. So I think anybody listening to this should take the biggest learning out of this is there is no what do you say, one thing that works for everyone. I think you have to like listen to your
Everybody.
and understand, be in tune with your
Yeah.
body and that are right for you. Because lemon, honey, and warm water is the most talked about morning ritual, and it doesn't suit everybody. I suffered with bad gastritis while I was on that, and just cutting down on that morning routine helped me like instantly. Like I just could, the next day I could feel I was fine. Like so, and when you read about lemon, it says it's alkaline. You will not. It shouldn't cause any, gastric
Yeah,
disturbance.
even if it's an acid inside our body, it is alkaline, but still it is going through our alimentary tract, which has nice mucosal layer and everything, and you are literally burning with this acidic and alkaline foods. So Ayurveda mentions it's if you want once in a while you can have it, but not on everyday basis.
Yeah, I think for me, in my understanding, I think you can have lemon in good, moderate proportions through the day in your meals, like flavor your meals and all that, but not like an empty stomach. That's my
Yeah, correct.
body has adjusted
Yeah,
to.
even I also believe the same, doctor. So if you want to have a lemon juice with a good amount of water added to it and you want to enjoy that, no problem. Please go ahead and do it, but not first thing in the morning, in that concentrated form. No.
And is does it
Same
is
thing with
apple cider vinegar?
vinegar, yes. Same things. It's the same thing that happens. It is also Tikshna and sharp, and it is an like acid, and it does the same thing, and even worse because it is much stronger than lemon.
Yes, absolutely. So now my go-to drink is early morning healthy water with cinnamon or whatever that will I feel like will calm, and mint leaves sometimes and tulsi leaves, that will calm the system, and I share it with my daughter on most days. And that brings me to the next most controversial item, and you have a broken relationship with your curd. So what are your thoughts on um, consuming yogurt?
Yeah, so I broke up with curd, I think when I was in my teenagers.
Oh God.
When I
Okay,
was,
why? Yeah.
yeah, because without I didn't know how to eat food without curd. But I was never given curd at home. So whenever I'm in my friend's place or cousin's place, I would be that person who would chuck down that whole this thing of curd. But yes, curd is supposed to be abhishandi or clogging your channels according to Ayurveda, and it is heating food. For many of the skin conditions, when you have heating food, the skin will, the skin, it's not good for the skin and for the hair also. And for if you're somebody with a lot of stomach issues, if you have low digestive fire, it is completely no good, not good at all. So curd is something which is 100% anti-Ayurvedic food to have. But instead, you can have buttermilk. So you don't have to deprive yourself of that taste if you want. But the buttermilk again has to be that super light, almost watery buttermilk with fat completely removed, and that is the real kind of buttermilk. And if you're having it, it is the opposite qualities according to Ayurveda. It is cooling. It is good for the skin, good for the hair. If you see psoriasis treatment, right? We give something called Takrathara where buttermilk is poured on the body because of its cooling properties. And it reduces kapha and reduces vata from your body. And people get lot of relief when we do Takrathara. So it's a treatment where where the patient is asked to lie down, and there'll be two people standing either sides of the patient, and we pour this medicated. It is not just takra, not just buttermilk, but a lot of herbs also added to it, and it is poured continuously for 30 minutes continuously. Because psoriasis, if you see, it is said to be a psychosomatic disorder, a lot to do uh, with your mind also. So a lot of cooling treatments like that is done. So buttermilk is something which is very cooling, very good for your gut, very good for your stomach issues. If you're having stomach issues, I always give buttermilk to patients, and they improve drastically. Their agni improves, their digestion improves. So buttermilk is very good.
So my thoughts
Yeah.
on curd buttermilk is buttermilk, of course, is like everyone's favorite. It's the most non-controversial milk product that's out there. So I will leave power buttermilk and
And
get me
ghee.
and ghee. Yes, no, ghee is actually also very controversial. I think buttermilk is the least
Yeah.
controversial. A lot of people they say, "Oh, if I eat that, I'm avoiding ghee." So what are the foods that you're eliminating in your diet? Oh, doctor, sugar, processed food, ghee. I'm like, why are you putting the most nutritious food into the list of the most useless food. So don't combine ghee with all these. But ghee is also very controversial. But buttermilk, I think, is somehow managed to deal with the negative aspect of milk, and it is secured in pot. But with curd again, it's a culprit. I feel curd. I think it's only the right way of eating curd is very important. So for in my practice, I ask people to avoid milk or milk products completely when they do not know where their milk is coming from. That's my problem with milk. I
Correct.
made a post, and there was a lot of controversy after that post saying, she's asking us not to drink milk or curd. This is an ancient practice. I'm like, guys, just read the description, and where your milk is coming from, it's good. Otherwise, now the dairy industry has become such that they want the buffaloes or the cows to produce more and more milk, right? So they inject the cows with antibiotics and steroids. And where are all these going? If you're drinking that milk, it's going into your system also. That's why you see a lot of like heart related issues, and you see a lot of acne in teenage and weight issues also, because you are drinking milk
Correct.
that with all these steroids and androgens basically that will
Yeah,
cause.
even cows have changed now.
Yeah.
Cows have been genetically modified too, because if you see olden times, from a cow you get limited amount of milk. And if you're somebody who's buying milk from the same cow every day, you can understand that some days the milk is less, some days the milk is more, because the cow produces like that. But these days, if you see all the cows, they produce tons and liters of milk, enough for everybody to drink. How is that even possible?
We have cow in the farm, and the cow is very tiny because it's like this nati we say, that means it's like from village. It's very tiny. It gives only this. So we also like don't want to take the entire milk from the cow, right? So first we let the
Yeah.
cow, once the feed is
And
done, whatever.
even, yeah, some days there'll be no milk even, right?
Yeah, yeah. So let me see. I asked people taking care of them like only that much. Initially, when I was like taking only this much milk we get from the cow. Yes, ma'am. Only that much you will get. So imagine the cows producing liters and liters. How are these cows able to produce so much? It's because either they're genetically modified or they're being injected with all these steroids, right? So you should be very careful about the source of your milk. That's the most important thing. If you're getting it from the farm and you know that it's the milk is not adulterated or it's not harmful, then I think it's okay to consume. If you're not lactose intolerant, that's the only key here. So if you're lactose intolerant, obviously you need to cut down. But then the curd is very very different. The ghee is very different from the actual milk, right? And curd and paneer are the most protein rich foods that you can be including in your diet if you are a vegetarian. So I
Yeah,
always recommend
lactose
my
and
clients,
casein is more.
yes, the casein and the whole, compared to milk, the protein content of curd and paneer is much more. So, and if you are a
More.
vegetarian, one of the most important sources of protein in your diet. So unless you are, and do not consume curd as much as possible at night. So through the day, enjoy your curd. I always tell my patients because I love your curd. So enjoy your curd. And just a few days back, I was reading somewhere that when after the curd is formed and there's like nice water layer on top, do not throw that water or do not discard that. Just mix it with your curd because that also has good amount of protein and other nutrients. So mix it properly and have the curd as a whole. Yeah.
Yeah, so what that layer that forms
Yeah.
above that curd, right? It is called mastu in Ayurveda, and it is said to be as good as nutritious as buttermilk, and it is
That's
much
the,
better than using curd. You should never discard that water. That water is very good for your gut health.
yes,
Yeah,
absolutely. Right.
even
So
Ayurveda says like
yeah,
that.
people should not blindly eliminate all these sources from their diet unless until they are if you are lactose intolerant, yes, go ahead and eliminate your milk. You can still try a little bit of curd and yogurt, I mean the buttermilk for sure, and ghee, because the composition is very 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 different from milk. So that's something that I really wanted to address. And like I also read this on your post saying avoid it at night, which very well resonated with me because that's something I try and do. But usually most of the day we are at work and night is when we go, and I'm like too tempted to have my
And
bowl of curd. I end up having it. I'm guilty of
yeah,
doing that, but I will try my best not to have curd at night and during the daytime. Okay, it's not
yeah.
top of curd vivid dreams. It's about the that settling on top of the curd we're talking about. Yeah, and
Yeah,
I
that
think
watery bit, which
since
is
we're
as good as buttermilk. Over the time, I think
so
Instagram will stop our life now. Yeah,
they don't have that anymore, I
Instagram will
think. But
stop the
also the
life
last,
once. Yeah.
yeah. Okay, so the last question is about white hair. Is there any Ayurvedic remedy or practice you can do to treat your gray hair?
Gray hair. Okay, gray hair, many things. One thing, let me be very quick about it. So, if it is hereditary and if your parents have got gray hair very early on, then it is very difficult. Second thing, after the age 35, if you're coming to me saying that I got gray hair all over my head, very difficult to treat that because it's a natural part of aging that happens. But if it is because of some medicines that you have taken, something hormonal, if it is because of too much of uh, problems with your food, somebody who is eating salt-rich foods can get early graying of hair. Somebody who is having a lot of stress can have early graying. So depending upon the cause, we can treat early graying of hair with Ayurveda. But not after 35, where you come and tell me that, I got gray hair. What, how can I reverse it? It cannot be reversed, unfortunately.
Yeah. So what are the but so someone says we can go live till 4 hours. So what happened last time? I think I exceeded this 1 hour time limit or whatever. Instagram automatically cut me off of my live, and
Correct.
obviously it got cut. Live was not saved anywhere. So since it was not saved anywhere, I couldn't even retrieve it. So what I'll do is I'm really scared
Oh,
of like losing this live because very informative and I
yeah,
want people to go back and watch and also go back and watch to know the oils that you were talking about, like Maha Masha oil that you spoke. I wrote it down and I think I'll ping you later to know
yeah,
how this oil is made. What we will do is I think
yeah,
we will end the live here. But I have a lot of questions, so
yeah.
it would be great if we can
Mhm.
do another live at some maybe after a few days
Definitely,
and all the
definitely.
questions that we haven't addressed.
Sure,
Yeah,
done.
sounds good.
And it was lovely speaking to you, doctor. And I felt like I'm talking to my friend who I know since so many years. And thank you for so much for that.
Same here, same here. I mean, I didn't realize 1 hour passed by, and I'm only cutting the life because I'm scared, and also there's a hair transplantation going on. Otherwise, I would go on and on, I think. Yeah. Thank you so much. Give us give us the tips for the lovely hair in the next session. Yeah. Thank
Yeah, sure, definitely. Yeah, thank you. Bye bye.
you. Yeah. Okay, guys. I think the session was informative, so I've got to rush because there's a hair transplantation going on in the clinic. I will see you. So, since I don't have time, I'm not going to be taking guests in today's live. But there are a lot of questions that I have that are unanswered, and also I have a lot of questions to Dr. Rekha. So I will try and bring her back soon. Thank you all for watching.